Okay, let's shift gears for a second and look at a different type of algebra. And this is a system of equations. First of all, we usually have equations that deal with x and y. Occasionally we'll have them when they involve x, y, and z. But those questions, and here's a tip in advance, those questions usually involve just taking an average of the three variables. But when you're dealing with x and y, okay, the first thing to realize is you can't solve for two unknown variables in only one equation. You just can't do it. But you can solve for one of the variables in terms of the other. And then if you plug it into two equations, then you can determine what two different variables are equal to. So if you need to know both x and y, you can't do it in one equation, but you can in two. And let's look at, we're going to work with substitution and replacement here. Well, this is a fairly easy question. Let's look at this. It's about 3/4 of the way down the page where the printing is in blue. Now, in a certain way, this relates directly to any microeconomics classes you've had before or any business classes, but it's also just a simple math problem. So what you need to do to solve these every time, I mean, just a very methodical, straightforward approach. You don't really want to invest too much thought or too much effort in these questions because they're not worth it. All you care about is selecting the correct answer choice. Now this one I haven't given you the answer choices, but I gave you the setup for the question. So convert this from words and numbers into variables and values, preferably as you read it for the first and only time, so that you can put it into an equation, and then the math is going to be really simple. The whole effort is just getting it into an equation. So let's tackle this kitty, and if you would put up a smiley face when you're done with this one, or whatever little emoticon you're feeling right at this moment, and let's take maybe 3 minutes for this one. On the test, you want to knock them out more like in 2 minutes. But here in class, we can take longer because we're working through it and we're discussing it. So please let me know your answer in the chat box when you finish this one, and then we'll discuss it. His first instincts were correct. He got both the answers and then said, wait a minute, not so fast. Yes, they were correct. Now, this is just my experience. This is not any other profession's opinion, but this is my opinion. Your first impulses are right, I'd say about 70% of the time. So that does not mean that your first instinct or your first impulse is always correct. But I think it's right about 70% of the time. So don't be so quick to doubt yourself, because then that's letting them get inside your head, and you don't want them there. They're not good house guests. If you feel you solved it correctly and you feel you've got the right answer, then be bold. I mean, be confident. Yes, that's the answer I'm going to choose. Don't let them start to get you to doubt yourself, because if you start down that road, it ends up in Miserable, and you don't want to go there. So let's just put these in terms of an equation as we read through one time. Okay, factory R equals $5,000 per M month. B, lowercase b, equals $0.25. And your price, this is the price at which you sell it, okay? Your cost is 25 cents. You sell it at 75 cents. So, if you've had any kind of business class, or just using common sense, then the difference between your cost and your selling price is your profit. Remember, we're all, to one degree or another, in this to make some cash. That's not a bad thing. It's not necessarily a good thing if that's your only motivation, but we're not necessarily all going to go work for nonprofits. I mean, part of this is we want to make some dough. So the difference between cost and price is your profit. Profit equals 50 cents a bottle. Okay, and especially if it's been any length of time or something, or if you've studied in another country, you definitely need to be aware that break even means you make no profit and you make no loss. So your profits cover your expenses and nothing more. Well, if our cost is $5,000, I don't want to get too into details of microeconomics here because that's not going to be part of the test. That's not something you need to really care about. Just the broadest sense of make a profit, lose money, or break even. Our costs are $5,000. How many times 50 cents do we have to sell to make that amount? So that's 10,000 bottles. 10,000 times 50 cents times 0.5 is equal to 5,000. The math is just crushingly easy. It's converting it into a form where you can then do that simple calculation where all the challenge lies. So then, what if you want to make $3,000? Okay, what do you have to do to earn a profit? You have to pay your expenses and then make additional income. So, if we want to profit $3,000, we've got to pay our bills first. So that means we need to make $8,000 in sales. That's how many times 0.5? That's 16,000. Boom. That's both our answers. Does anyone still have any questions on